We have a final in the first matchup for the Tigers in the SEC tournament of 2025. The Ole Miss Rebels fall to the Auburn Tigers 62-57. We've got a lot to talk about and break down this quarterfinal matchup and the Auburn Tigers moving on. We'll get into the stats, the storylines as well. Let's get into all those different things right now. War Eagle, everybody, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together and we sit down and we talk about the Auburn experience. That Auburn experience to us is all about a few things: Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. It's orange and blue. It's what we do. That's kind of how we like to say it in the simplest of terms. So thank you so much for joining us and what we're going to do on this particular live stream, whether you're watching live or on the replay. My name's Kyle, for those of you that don't know me, and we appreciate you tuning in to talk about this. Let's get you started right off at the start here with the most important things on these post-game streams. We'd like to talk about the score, the stat, and the storyline of this particular game. The score, as we said at the very start, 62-57. The Tigers take down the Ole Miss Rebels and move on into the semifinals, winning in this quarterfinal matchup. The stat that I have for you is 23 and 15. That is the double-double mark for Johni Broome in this game, and really the reason that this game was put away. And the big storyline for the third time this year. It is tough to beat anybody twice, but 3 times is impressive. The Auburn Tigers beat the Ole Miss Rebels for the third time in the 2024-25 season. We're going to get into so many other things. We want to hear from you as well in this particular broadcast. Those of you that are especially watching live, you can obviously drop comments on the replay if you're able to do so when you watch that version of it. But join in on the chat. Let us know that you're here, where you're watching from. I know it's the middle of the day for a lot of you, and a lot of you aren't able to check in as readily as you'd like to, but so many of you are already doing that from all across the land, from the Southeast and beyond. We appreciate you checking in with us. Let us know your big discussions. How we do these things. We go through individual stats. We go through team stats. Amongst all of that, we'll be talking about storylines, things that stuck out to us. You guys will take part in the show in a major way, so don't be shy. Join in on the conversation here in the chat. So many celebrations already starting to roll in right now from across the land. Good to see so many of you here for this particular stream. And I will do my best not to sound too hoarse throughout all of these different things here. WT says, hopefully this game puts to rest the storyline among a lot of the Auburn fans that Auburn basketball is on a downward trend. A nice win. Yeah, a lot of pessimism had set in given how the last 2 games went for Auburn. And certainly some of that needed to be peppered with a little bit of a reality check and realizing what you were going up against, what you were trying to day in, night out, trying to compete with in the SEC, and eventually somebody was going to catch up to you. And it could even happen here in the SEC tournament games, as we saw with Ole Miss being a very, very impressive basketball team. Now, with that in mind, obviously Auburn is the number 1 seed. Auburn is expected to win this one by the betting odds, and so you would expect them to move forward. But as you saw, Chris Beard and the Ole Miss Rebels are a tough team to put away. I will start us off right there. It felt like this game was brought to you by the number 6, if we can be Sesame Street for a second. The entirety of like the first half and most of the second half, it felt like 6 points was that margin of victory or at least the margin of what Auburn could create. And then they got it actually down and tied it up. Ole Miss led the game for part of the first half, but once Auburn got the lead, I don't believe they technically, if you want to count the tie, I guess, ever lost it after that point. So Auburn, once it got control, was able, even despite a few of the issues, be able to hold off the Ole Miss Rebels and Chris Beard and so many of these names. Padula is the guy who knocked down the shot in their first matchup to continue to put them move them on Ole Miss into the tournament. No more, but so many names that you would have to pay attention to here and be scared of. The Auburn Tigers are victorious, though, and so many of you here are here to hang out and talk about all the different things today. Okay, I want to know from you guys in the chat, is there any other player of the game than Johni Broome? Right now, even if it's just a formality, tell me your player of the game. POTG, person's name. Give it to me right now in the chat. I want to know what you guys think. I said I wasn't going to cough too much, but apparently I'm going to. Let me know what you guys think in terms of player of the game. It's probably not that hard to give this one out this afternoon, I guess I should say, when we're broadcasting on this one. But there are some other people that will certainly give some kudos to. Janai Broome, 23 points, 15 rebounds, double-double. He had a double-double throughout most of the second half. I think he got it like at 11:22. So just over half of the second half, he had his double-double. So an impressive day for him. And you really need to point no further than just the stats alone, but that moment at the end of the game where Janai just goes down there and puts the ball in with seconds left to give Auburn a 5-point victory and really create some space for the Tigers to feel a little bit more comfortable. Not much, but a little bit more comfortable tonight. He gets to the free throw line a ton today, and he shoots 7 for 10. You know, I'll take that for a big man. My high water mark is always 80% across the board, team or individuals. But when Janai was getting fouled the way he was the entirety of the game and was able to do that, 7 out of 10 ain't bad. I'll take that. He's 8 for 14 for the day. He gets an assist, only 2 personal fouls. He didn't have a personal foul until like, I don't know, was it 7 minutes left in the second half? And he has 3 turnovers and 35 minutes of play today, tied for the most minutes of play out there on the floor tonight. So great to see him being back to form and looking like the national player of the year. Certainly there is a worthy conversation with him and Cooper Flagg, and we still hope that he's okay with what happened with him and his ankle in the first game. Don't ever wish any ill will, but Janai is most certainly the best player of the game. The best player of the game, the best player in the country, and he's showing that today. WT wants to say, as much as hate to... I told you I wasn't going to cough, and here I am. As much as I hate to ever give it to anyone not named CBM, I have to give Broome player of the game for that. Yes, certainly he is worthy of that this evening. Now, let's also give some kudos to Denver Jones. He is your second leading scorer tonight and the only other Tiger in the game to get into double digits. This is a very low scoring game. Auburn's not used to this. I would venture to say Ole Miss is probably not used to this as well. Only 2 Tigers in double digits. Denver Jones is that second one with 13 points. He finishes 5 for 8 from the field in the day. All his free throws, just got 1. 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He did a pretty good job the entire game. He really was key at the start off the game, getting Auburn started by knocking down some threes early and really giving Auburn that push it needed to begin to try to like counter what Ole Miss was doing from the very, very start of the game. So kudos to Denver Jones. He certainly deserves a lot of the praise tonight. Niels here says, happy for the win. Pretty sure Ole Miss beat Alabama this season, so I'm not sure what Bama fans are doing in this thread. Mike is here just to instigate. That's what he does, and he's here. That's why he's not getting really any time right now, because I know he's here just to do all that. I'm just messing with him, though. Take a sip of water to deal with what my throat's going on right now. So let's talk about a few more individuals here and talk about that. That's a good stat to bring up unbeaten. Like, I'll bring that up in a second. Your rest of your scorers today are Miles Kelly with 9. Dylan Cardwell doesn't get any. I thought he had 1. I was mistaken on that. Tahad Pettiford with 5. Jaheim Hudson with 2. Chad Baker Mazzaro with 7. And Chaney Johnson with 3. Chaney hit a really, really clutch 3 there in the second half when we really needed something to start going our way on another one of those Ole Miss runs. So kudos to Chaney for knocking that down. He continues to have quieter games than what we would hope he would have offensively, but he's doing great things with 7 rebounds. He's the second leading rebounder behind Janai tonight, so he's getting the job done in a variety of ways. I want to listen. I am not someone, y'all have seen me do this, watched me, listened to me do this before, and I don't like to get on these ref bashing bandwagons because I just think we can be a little bit more intelligent than that. That's the stuff Bama does. But I don't know what Dylan Cardwell did to the referees today. He only finishes with 3 fouls, but he had the 2 early, and then the other one where he literally just reached up and took the ball away from the guy on the rebound. And yes, technically it's over his back, but he wasn't on his back at all. He just took it from him like that, and somehow that's a foul. So I was very frustrated for Dylan today. I thought Dylan being removed from the equation so early really affected the Tigers early, messed up the flow of the big man rotation. He got Jaheim Hudson in there, who got a bucket earlier, so that's great to see for him. but certainly got us a little bit out of the rhythm to start off with in the very first game of the SEC tournament. What else? Miles Kelly, I thought, had some pretty decent points today. He only knocks down 1 3, but he gets the 9 points, 3 rebounds. Tahad, I thought, was a little bit sloppy at times today, but that's what freshmen do. They're very dynamic, and sometimes that dynamic nature can lead you to be a little bit sloppy at times, but he gets 5 points, 4 rebounds today. And credit to Tahad Pettiford as well, because early Auburn was losing the rebound battle. Janai was really the only one other than Tahad Pettiford who was getting the job done rebounding wise for the Tigers. So if there is a big CBM, not a great game for him offensively. He doesn't start today. I think a lot of people will ask, is that about what happened in the last game with him getting the flagrant 2? It could be. It also could be, as Chad has done previously and opened up about, when he was a little bit injured and coach wanted to still start him. He said, no, start Chris Moore. We have been starting very well when he is coming out, starting the game for us, and I'm coming off the bench. So there could have been a little bit of that dynamic playing there as well. That's up for the coaches. They're the ones that are going to know what the decision process was there for them. But Chad finishes with 7, had an emphatic dunk there at the end of the game. It was a nice little moment for him to kind of let some of that energy loose that we really love to see from him. And I do want to give a shout out to Chris Moore. Obviously, he's not, the most outstanding offensively, but I pointed out early on our social media, Chris Moore is just such a great defender. There was an attempt to back him down, like one of the first trips down the court, and you could tell the guy was much bigger than him and really thought he was going to be able to push him around. And Chris Moore did not move an inch, an absolute inch. So he was a wall there on defense. So I just want to give him a shout out in areas where we certainly get the opportunity to do that. We'll look at a little bit forward about awards and what's coming up next for the Tigers here in just a little bit as we round things out. But if there is anything individual wise that we need to bring up in this game, please do that throughout the rest of the stream, and we'll give shout outs or answer questions, comments about that. But let's move more into the team side of the stats discussion right now. So your breakdown for each half, the scoring, Auburn led 29-22 going in to the halftime. They do lose scoring wise because it's 35-33 in Ole Miss's favor in the second half. And certainly that's what resulted in such a closer ending of the game, 57-62, though the Auburn Tigers get the win for this quarterfinal matchup with Ole Miss. But that's your breakdown for scorings in the half. Devin's getting here a little bit late, but thanks for hanging out with us and being here. We appreciate that. Team stats. You guys know where I'm going to focus most of my time. That is going to be the big 3, right? Say them with me: free throws, turnovers, and rebounds. So let's look at them. It was interesting watching these 3 throughout the game, which ones Auburn was swinging in its favor and the other ones that Auburn was starting to lose the matchup on. You've got with free throws today, Auburn finishes 67%, only attempts 15, but so does Ole Miss, who only attempts 17. They get 76, so we lose that matchup. That is not something you want to see. I always push for 80%. Anything below 70, I start to get upset with. So certainly we could have done much better in that area and would have made things a lot easier on ourselves down the stretch. Turnovers tonight. This was probably the most frustrating thing for me, especially in the second half. In fact, I wonder, can I pull up turnovers by this half? So that would be the second half. 11. So we had 15 turnovers. Look, I want y'all to look at this. 15 total turnovers. 11 of them were in the second half. Part of the reason Auburn wasn't able to push out past that 6 point lead that they had for a lot of the second half is because of things like this, little things like free throws, because of the turning the ball over. And a lot of those turnovers were very late, made things a little bit scary. But Auburn loses that battle 10-15. So that's 2 of the categories that they've lost already right there. And finally, rebounds. Thankfully, this one flipped. Early, Ole Miss was winning this one, especially on the offensive rebounding side. Thankfully, the Tigers eclipsed them in both of those categories, resulting in a 28-38 rebounding win margin for Auburn over Ole Miss. Now, obviously, as I always point out, just because you win 2 out of the 3 or lose 2 out of 3, that doesn't dictate a win or a loss, but it certainly can help paint the picture for why things ended up the way they did. Here's the thing, and let me point this out to you guys, looking right here at our field goal percentage. Ours was pretty good, 45%. Theirs okay, 38%. Not great, 38% is fine. 3-point percentage was not good for either team tonight. 29% for Auburn, so that's under 1 out of every 3. But look at Ole Miss, 17%. Imagine what might have happened had they knocked down, let's just say, 3 more of those, because that would have eclipsed the number Auburn that made in this game. If they knock down 3 of those, we're, especially in whatever moment that happens in, we're probably talking about a very sad post-game stream right now. That's how close these margins were. That's why it's so important, why I stress about free throws, turnovers, rebounds, because those will dictate the outcome of the game based off of how some of these little other things are happening throughout the game. So is there a stat that sticks out to you that you'd like to discuss? Put that. We'll look back through a few of these. I do want to go back to this comment that was brought up a little bit earlier by Unbeaten Lake. And certainly this is within the context, not just of this season, but for a while, Bruce Pearl is having his way with Ole Miss. 9 straight wins for the Tigers, 3 of those this year. It is extremely difficult to beat somebody once. Very difficult. I want to say impossible, but just it's very shocking when you can beat somebody twice in the same season. When you play them a third time, I would say that is borderline impossible because you've seen everybody, you know your tendencies. I mean, you know their tendencies, but they know yours as well. And I feel like in the third matchup, it most likely would favor the person that hasn't won any of the other 2, if that's the case. And that was the case coming in. So this is probably the most formidable game that Auburn and Ole Miss had all season. I think we beat them pretty decently in both of the last 2 matchups. So a good thing to bring up by Unbeaten Lake there to start out there. Micah thinks that Janai seemed very inconsistent on free throws today. Just something I've noticed. Well, Janai's a big man, and they don't typically have the most consistent free throws. 7 out of 10 ain't bad. I will take that. So I wouldn't call that inconsistent. I would call that about what you expect out of a big man. But, you know, it is okay for a Bama fan to notice things and then be wrong about it. You know what you get into when you come over here, Micah. Let's see here. This is from Wardam says, I definitely like our chances in March Madness tourney. I feel like our depth puts us in a great position as long as our bench contributes. Now, certainly keep your focus here and now. Let's not worry so much about that. Right now, you got an SEC tournament, focus on that. But certainly to your point, the depth really plays in Auburn's favor, especially when you are going to be more well rested than some teams. Now we're moving into a time period where, you know, depending on who wins out from this point forward, we'll all have technically equal amounts of rest, unless Texas beats Tennessee, things like that. But Auburn being well rested, having a bench that contributes is an important factor. Tonight, your bench points, only 11 for Ole Miss, 17 for Auburn. So there you go. To your point, they win that category today and get the win versus Ole Miss. The rest of the stats, let's see if there's anything else that sticks out to us. Second chance points was in Ole Miss's favor by about 11-4. Points in the paint completely tied. So kind of reflects the low scoring nature of this game. I feel like when you both get 26 points in the paint and are evened up on that. Fast break points. So fast break points coupled with second chance points is very favorable for Ole Miss. Part of the reason that they kept it so close, 12-2, they win that one. Auburn wins in blocks 1-3. They lose in steals 10-6. And then an assist, though, the Tigers continue to do what they've done a lot of this season, sharing the ball very well with each other. They win 6-14 in the assist category. And as we pointed out, once Auburn got the lead, they never lost it outside of the one time they were tied in the second half. So those are some individual stats. Those are some team stats. And that is the majority of the things that I wanted to talk about from Auburn versus Ole Miss in this quarterfinal matchup. Thankful to get the win over them for the third time this season. Now, if there's something that we haven't discussed about an individual, about the team, a moment, an issue, something that you noticed throughout this stream, throughout the stream, but for this game, please don't be afraid to bring it up. We will talk about that. But we do want to start moving into what's next for the Tigers, because I know that's what the majority of you these days want to talk about is what's next. We need to learn to enjoy the moment a little bit, in my opinion, but we'll certainly do that. Before we move into that time, a couple of reminders for you about what to keep up to date with here at E2C Network. Keep in mind, we don't right now know who Auburn will play in the semifinals. It will be Texas. It will be a UT, Texas or Tennessee. I think if you're Auburn, you're hoping it's Texas because they will be more they will, in all likelihood, be a lot more tired. Tennessee feels like they would be the more challenging opponent, but if Texas wins, that could be debated. But certainly that's out there. If they would continue to win, they would be in the championship game. Auburn will play for the rest of the time at noon Central Time in Nashville if they continue winning. Please join us for post-game streams. I will tell you tomorrow's a little bit iffy about when and how I will be able to do that stream. I've got a family event tomorrow that's going to coincide with this. So please bear with us if there's not an immediate stream right after or anything like that. I'm going to do my best to be live. But for the post-game stream for the championship game, do not worry. We will be there to celebrate with you if we win or break it down if we lose. And keep in mind, Sunday nights are for you, the Auburn family. It's the Auburn Experience live podcast recording, episode 117. We'll be talking about this tournament, so many other Auburn things, sports or otherwise, and especially March Madness because the brackets will be out. With that in mind, too, if you're interested, on Sunday, we will go live with our bracket challenge group, which you can join and get a prize from Alumni Hall and a $50 e-gift card to the winner. We thank them for joining us this year as the prize sponsor. And right now, our Conquer Club members can go ahead and sign up early. You want to go ahead and do that. A lot of you forget to do that every year because you didn't do it right when we brought it out. So it's out there for the Conquer Club people right now. All right. Let's see what you guys are saying. We'll move into looking forward a little bit here and talk about that. WT points out, I was disappointed in the sloppy inbound under the basket late in the game by Auburn. It's a really weird juxtaposition, WT, because for a team that's so good at defending the inbound, they seemed, at least today, to have some struggles getting it in themselves. So a little bit of their own medicine was given to Auburn in that regard. Certainly this points to the steals, some of those moments where Auburn really could have pulled away and was not able to do that. Devin points out Ole Miss is no slouch. A 6 seed, possibly a 5 seed in the tournament, didn't play our best, but still a solid win. And one thing I want to point out off of what Devin just brought up here, I'm using it as a segue. There was this narrative floating out there a lot about Auburn should just take the tournament off and not even really worry about it and rest up for the NCAA tournament. I don't know if you can make a statement that shows that you don't know what you're talking about anymore if you bought into that narrative. There is in no way. You always, people who are thinking about that are just so worried about injuries, things like that, or getting embarrassed or losing out on some seeding or something like that, as opposed to what's more important, your team staying in a rhythm. So think about this. Auburn loses this today. They then go sit for a much longer time and have to sit there and wait. And, yes, you go practice, you get your mindset right, but you can't stay in the rhythm of how you're shooting, how you're playing together as a team. That's much more difficult to do. And you saw that a little bit earlier, and it's probably part of the reason why Auburn doesn't score a lot in this game. So to me, it's more important to keep playing. Don't think about it that way. Always take every opportunity that you have to be out there. Let's see here. This is from Micah, says Battle of the UTs, E2C, like you were saying on TikTok. At least you won't have to play A&M. Amen, brother. Amen. I am so glad that we don't have to play A&M. In fact, let me bring it up a little bit for you guys just to talk about to round out our time here. I know this isn't great for the audio people that listen to the replay, but what I will do here for everybody is bring up the bracket. I should still have it ready to go on here for you guys. Let me pull this out right here, bring this over, and we'll bring the bracket up onto the screen again one more time. So for those of you that are watching, you can see it right there. Again, this is not reflective of what's already happened. Right now, Auburn just beat Ole Miss, so they're in the semifinals. It'll be Texas versus Tennessee up next, the game with our biggest implication. I think most of us will be rooting for the Longhorns. Then you would have Florida versus Missouri. Yes, that's a good rematch that could get very interesting for the semifinals on that side of the bracket. And then Alabama versus Kentucky, which will be a very fun matchup tonight as well. So good basketball being played throughout the game, throughout the day. If you are a college basketball fan, if you are just a March Madness fan, you are watching some of the best being played in the nation right now. Enjoy the heck out of it while you have the opportunity to. Okay. So that's really where we're at this point. That's going to be our post-game stream discussion. We thank those of you that were able to join us live here in the middle of the day. I know that's a struggle for some because of it's a little bit odd doing it one this early, but that's the nature of being the number one seed. You get the early game, and the great thing is that there will be a lot of consistency for Auburn in routines and patterns. They won't have to wait for games to finish and have to push their time that they need to play again shorter and shorter to rest up in between games. Your Tigers defeat the Ole Miss Rebels for the third time this year. That is your big storyline, winning today by the score of 62-57 behind that big stat that we talked about, really two stats, 23 and 15. Janai Brooms double gets the win for Auburn. Moving on to the semifinals, looking forward to whoever Auburn will face, Tennessee or Kentucky. It will be a fun matchup regardless of who it is. Thank you all so much for joining us and being part of our stream here today and celebrating the win with us as we move on in the SEC tournament. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.